We're here at MetroStage to talk about their next production, Cool Papa's Party, and with me is 12-time Helen Hayes Award winner Thomas W. Jones II. How are you, Tom?
I am fine. Blessed. Thank you. Good to be here.
And also sitting next to him is the legendary dancer and director, choreographer of the show, Maurice Hines. How are you, Maurice?
I'm spectacular. Happy to see you and happy to be here.
Well, thank you so much for being here in the middle of this rehearsal. Tell us what's going on out there.
It's fanabulous.
It's fanabulous. A great line that Tom wrote. I love that. Fanabulous. Isn't that a great word?
Great word.
And that's what the show is. It's fanabulous.
Well,
the show.
They look like fabulously exhausted dancers out there.
Yeah, well, we've been working them pretty hard, and they're wonderful, wonderfully talented people. Wonderfully talented. And they really want to give it their all, so that makes it easy for us.
Well, let's first go back and talk a little bit about what the show's about, Tom.
Well, I think it is to icons and mythic icons like Sammy Davis Jr. and Nat King Cole and those types. It is to them, and more so Sammy Davis Jr. that as Dreamgirls is to Barry Gordy and the Supremes. I mean, it really is kind of a mythic journey and look at the life of probably the last great entertainer of the 20th century, and probably the world's greatest entertainer at a certain point. Looking at his life, his loves, what are the forces that make that kind of, starting as a protege at 3 and becoming this kind of seminal entertainer. What makes that? What makes, what are the forces that go into that?
Well, Maurice, tell us a little bit about Cool Papa.
Well, Cool Papa, like Tom said, is it's loosely based on Sammy Davis Jr. But and I think because I have such respect for Tom, we were at a meeting and he told me what he was doing, and I said I'd love to choreograph it. And because Gregory and I both knew Sammy Davis Jr., and I know that era very well, and having grown up in it, it was easy for me to recreate the choreography and the tap and also the jazz, and it runs the gamut of his whole life. So we go through the 30s and the 40s, even earlier than that, into the 60s and 70s, and it's just wonderfully done and wonderfully written. Tom is a very, very talented man. So it's very easy for me to work with him because I am a snob about talent. And if you don't have it, I don't want to be around you. It's just one of my negative qualities. My brother said, Maurice doesn't even have friends that are not talented. So it's really a joy. And the MetroStage here is a wonderful, wonderful place to work. Wonderful place. I'm really enjoying it, and I have great friends in Washington, so I'm staying with them. And I've worked so many times at the National. I just did a show recently here with Maurice White and called Hot Feet at the National that came to Broadway. So I'm very, very excited about coming back to D.C. And D.C. is going to love Cool Papa.
So, Tom, is he telling the truth?
Every bit of it, and I only owe him a few dollars, which is not. I only have to pay him a little bit after. Oh no, but it is. I mean, first of all, it's an honor. It's an honor and a blessing to have someone like like Maurice Hines, doing it. And when we were sitting at the lunch, and he said, "Oh, I'd love to choreograph it," and I tried to not have the food caught in my throat and not have the Heimlich, and I was like, oh, really?
Where was this? When did this happen?
We were in New York at
Joe Allen's.
Yes.
Joe Allen's, having a meeting on another project. Mm-hmm. And then because I know Tom works all the time, I said, Tom, what are you doing now? And he said, well, I'm doing this show called Cool Papa. And, I love the name. What's it about? Well, it's loosely based about Sammy Davis, like Dreamgirls was too, about the Supremes. I said, it just came out of my mind. That's how I'll choreograph it. Just like that.
It was that simple.
And I was supposed to do it because I was supposed to be in London this time doing Blues in the Night, which I'd done in San Francisco with Frida Payne and Carol Woods. And that was postponed because of the economics. And it was postponed until May of this year. So I was supposed to be here. See how life is? Mm-hmm. Life is something. I love the way that show business. It takes you where you're supposed to be.
Well, let's go back to this rehearsal we just saw.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell me what you were putting them through there, Maurice. First.
Well, it was the 60s section we were doing, the laugh-in section, and so it's that kind of choreography. And
well, let's talk about William Knowles and his score. Tell us what it's about, Tom.
Well, I think William Knowles is a brilliant kind of jazz musician who's actually had his MFA at the jazz department at University of Massachusetts. And so we've worked together over some years. We actually met years ago at a project doing Bessie's Blues at Studio Theater, and we have kept in contact and worked together for the last 10 years. When I was conceptualizing this project, in my head, thinking of composers, it was someone who had to be literate in a kind of in a jazz idiom, as well as being able to do a lot of other things, like some, pop, but particularly, really lucid in a jazz idiom, and he has all of those chops. So I think what he put together is absolutely it's a marvelous score.
So how do you describe the score?
I think it's a hybrid of a lot of different styles of music because we cover so many different eras. So you hear stuff from vaudeville, you hear the big band kind of sound in the 40s, you hear that kind of 60s Les McCann compared to what then, you hear all of the different kind of styles blending, and then you hear a lot of, not just a cop, but you hear then William Knowles, his own signature on that. So it really is kind of a musical hybrid. It's a party. It's fabulous.
Well, Maurice, take it from there and talk about how your choreography matches that.
Well, the music always comes first with me. So when I heard that, they give me a CD, and I enjoyed it. But when I heard him play, it triggered something in me choreographically. I have to have that. If the music is not there, I can't choreograph unless the music is there. And so it made me be creative. And that's very important for me because I have to enjoy it too. I'm not one of those choreographers that everything is for the dancers. No, I got to enjoy it. I got to have a good time. It got to make me want to do it. Because when I'm choreographing, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I don't need anything else. I'm just my dancers and the performers who want to work, and I'm in heaven. I'm in heaven. I mean, I'm a theater animal. You just get me on the stage. I love being around performers. And I also love being around directors who know what they want to do and also who are creative in the moment. I don't like mechanics. Tom works very much like Joe Layton, who was one of my mentors. And I love when they create on their feet because then I can create on my feet.
Well, tell people what shows you worked with Joe Layton.
I met him on Bring Back Birdie, and that was with Don O'Connor and Sheeta Rivera and myself. And I had a great time with him there. And then he became the director for Radio City Music Hall, and then I took over as the first director, choreographer of Radio City Music Hall, the first African-American director in 47 years. It was a long time coming, but I loved the check, so I didn't complain. And Joe Layton did that for me, and he made me realize that there's such a thing as creative staging, because I'm a choreographer, man, and I don't have that gift of creative staging. Tom has a gift of that. I don't have that gift. I learn and I can do it, but it's not something that I'm gifted at. But Joe Layton actually said, Maurice, you have a style. And I never thought I had a style. He said, yeah, it's the style that makes dancers fall out.
Okay.
And audiences go crazy.
Hey, Tom, describe this very, how should I put it? Energetic, eccentric choreographer style.
I mean, not to downplay. I think it is it's based on brilliance and genius, and it comes from years and years. I mean, it doesn't happen by accident. I think it's God given, and there's a gift, and certainly that's the genesis of it. But after that, it's years and decades of doing work all around the world, and doing work with some of the best people, and being trained by some of the best people, and studying under the best people. So that we all sit and watch Maurice in rehearsal and marvel at just the breadth of his vocabulary, how he can stop in a moment and say, okay, do this, okay, that's not working for you, let me change this and do this for you because this looks better on your body than that. And that's that I find is a remarkable gift, that he doesn't get stuck in, no, this is my choreography, this is what it is, and whether you look good doing it or not, you're going to do it.
You know what Tom does? I love what he says. He respects his actors so much, and he always says, does that make sense to them?
What happens if they say no, Tom?
Then we stop and we figure it out.
And he figures it out, and he says, does that make sense? Cool.
Boy, that's rare.
He says
that's rare.
Very rare, very rare. But that's because he loves artists. He wants them to be happy. They have to do 8 shows a week. Right. They have to do it. We don't have to do it.
We'll be gone.
We're out of here. So we have to make sure the audience enjoys it. That's another thing that Tom is able to do. I have great respect for that because he's right. I've worked with the best people. I know when it's not right. I know when the people don't know what they're doing. And if they don't know if I came here and Tom didn't know what he was doing, I was on the next train. They don't know that about me.
Was it the A train?
No. You know the train is a cellar.
Right.
That's what it's called. Right. The A train, a cellar. I'll be out of here. Oh yeah, I have done that. I have done it, so it ain't something I'm gonna make up.
But does anybody put you on the train?
No, they never put me on the train. They want to keep me.
Right? Yeah, they do.
No, but it's true. I would have left. I can't be unhappy. I've been doing it. I've been doing it so long.
Let's go on another track here, please, and let's talk about your cast. Anything you want to say about this great cast?
Oh, they're fantastic.
They're fantastic.
Now, who are they? Introduce them there.
Well, there's Jahi Kears from who's playing the Cool Papa from Atlanta. There's William Hubbard. There's Anthony Mano, who is actually a Howard grad and DC person living in L.A. There's Roz White. There's Gia Mora and Ben Horn.
Sho Can Dance. Where Ramon?
I shuffled right, she left.
Jesus.
No, I ain't seen him either.
Shuffle.
Talk about what kind of tap you're using in the show. Maybe you can demonstrate a little by tapping here.
Definitely not. The kind of tap.
That's fabulous.
The kind of tap that I'm doing here is not heavy tap because they're not tappers. They're not tappers. So I give them things. I give them syncopation as opposed to heavy taps like my brother would do, or Xavier Glover, or myself, or Henry Latang, who was our teacher. The stuff that we did in the Cotton Club movie. That's heavy tapping. That's high tapping. They're not high tappers, but they can do. They have great time. If we have great time, I can give you syncopated steps, and they want to learn it. So I can give some pullbacks. I didn't start it easy with them. Now I'm throwing some pullbacks and some cramp rolls, which are a little bit more difficult for them, but they're still going for them. So by the time next week, they'll have them. But I'm not giving heavy stuff that I would do because they're not tappers, but they're performers. And when you're performers and you want to learn, you go for it.
Tom?
I can't speak to tap. I can speak to them as performers, though, and that's the thing that I think first, attracted me to them. I've worked with 80% of them, and what they are fully committed as artists. That they throw themselves completely into the moment. They're amazing singers. They're really extraordinary actors, and they move really, really well. And I think, again, I go back. Maurice puts movement on their body that fits them, that they can do. And watching him contour, it's like watching a sculptor. Who starts with this great piece of clay, and then you continue to kind of hone away till you get exactly the kind of thing that it may not look like Michelangelo over here, it may not look like this over here, but it looks like what it's supposed to look like for the artists that are working with it.
Right.
I understand the show is really a journey of this country's history, some of which you played a part in, Maurice. You want to take us through that journey?
Well, only because of the kind of show business and it represents Sammy Davis. And I started, Greg, my brother and I started very young at the Apollo Theater. So we met Sammy very early on in our lives and met Nat King Cole and met Lena Horne and met the Nicholas Brothers. And so we learned and met John Bubbles, who was very, very instrumental in us learning how to really, really dance to the audience. And we were discovered by Dinah Washington and Ruth Brown. So those are the people that this show represents to me. And especially when he goes to the Vegas years, and I think that's wonderful. Those were golden years. In fact, at that time we really met Sammy because we were opening up for Ella Fitzgerald, and they were down the street. Not the full Rat Pack, just Sammy, Dean, and Frank, and we had a chance to meet Mr. Sinatra and Mr. Martin, and they were so wonderful to Gregory and I and my father. The act was called Hines and Dad at the time, and so I'm entrenched in that era, and therefore this kind of show is like perfect for me. It's perfect for me because I know it and I've lived it, and Tom is very open to say, Maurice, what do you think about this? And I say, gee, this reminds me of it. He's so in tune with himself as a writer that there really wasn't anything I can say that he doesn't hit, and correctly and perfectly.
How do you respond to that one, Tom?
Humbled, but I have I absolutely adore and am in awe of the geniuses. And I think sometimes we don't acknowledge of what the genius is and where it comes from, and that it needs to be, not only honored. I only write because I am intrigued by the people I am writing about, and that I have a tremendous respect and love for. Years ago I did a piece when I was running a theater on Dinah Washington, and I remember audiences coming up and saying, "Oh, thank you," and not particularly those who knew Dinah Washington, because the way in which we embraced her spirit and the way in which we talked about her was not only humane, but was to honor her. And it was not to say that she didn't have her own contradictions, that we don't all have our own contradictions, but something a writer, my mentor, Sonia Sanchez, taught me was that you begin to talk about particularly African-American people and all their majesty and non-majesty, but that at the end of the day, if you love them and you care about them, then it's about elevating them, it's about heightening them, and it's about learning from them. It's not about destroying those icons.
That's right.
So in my sense, this is really kind of a tonal poem. It's a love poem to an era that's gone from us, but also those who shaped it and the reason why we are here. I remember years ago I was in Vegas watching Clint Holmes, and the opening song in his act used to be, "I'm standing on their shoulders," and that in essence, we stand on the shoulders of the Maurice Hines, of the Sammy Davis Juniors, of the Dinah Washingtons, of the Ellas, of the Sarahs, of the Duke Ellingtons.
That's right.
We are living on their shoulders, and if we forget that, then I think we have tragically made a mistake in terms of the art that we're doing.
Yes.
So
Wonderfully put, really. It's true. Very true.
Well, you workshopped the show in Atlanta. So what's changed here from the Atlanta workshop?
We really just sat around the table, and did a kind of a sing through and a read through. And I think what's changed that we're putting it on its feet. We're allowing to see it. And the major changes is Maurice Hines. I mean, in all honesty, the breadth of what it is now, because of his kind of breadth of vision, allows us to see it in ways that I hadn't even conceptualized it. And sometimes just sitting and listening to him talk, he'll do a step of something, and then he'll tell you where that step came from and why it's this as opposed to that, and you just sit and go, wow. Yeah, okay, which then makes you go back and revisit how you're going to put it up on its feet and say, okay, well, it has to live in this way then as opposed to that. So
this is a world premiere, so before you invite the audience to come and see the show, tell us what you think will be the highlights for you in the show.
For me, to me, the whole show is a highlight because it really spans his life. It really talks about so many aspects of what the man was. What the man was. We all know what a great performer he was, but what the man was, and that's what I think this project does. And you feel something for him. So I think the whole show is a highlight. I really do.
Tom?
I'll just say ditto. It's hard for me because we haven't, you haven't seen it in front of an audience, and I think you begin to learn also what a show is in front of an audience. But in terms of rehearsal process, it really is. There's this kind of detachment that I have from it and looking at it, that it doesn't feel like I wrote it. It just really feels like it came through me, not from me. And I really do think it was kind of inspired by something else. And the way in which it kind of evolved and came to fruition was all a series of happy accidents. So there is a kind of looking at it, but I think it is all a highlight. And I think there's something that is unique in each little era that you begin gleaning from and say, oh, I learned something each time we do it.
Also, what Tom has done, which I told him when we met Sammy was always moving. Even when, we were in his dressing room and you think he would sit down, he sat down and talked to Greg and I. But even then, his body seemed to be just electric and moving. That's what this show does. It's moving, this show. It is not standing still. And that's what he's captured. He's captured that kinetic energy that Sammy had, that kinetic thing. And even in the writing. And even in the staging, and I don't know if he knew that. I don't know if Tom ever met Sammy, but he's captured what I know Sammy was because I did know him and we did meet him and we did work with him, and that's what this show has got, and that's what was amazing to me. That's what it's very exciting to work with on a project like this, especially since I knew the man, and the show itself has that, and it makes me create that way. It's great feeling creatively.
Thank you both for being here.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
So let's end this by inviting our listeners to come see Cool Papa's Party and tell them what kind of theater experience they will have.
Fanabulous.
Ditto. Fanabulous, baby. Fanabulous.
A colored mama, a Cuban daddy, and me.